Good morning, the Huddle faithful. How are you today, gentlemen?
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome back
just-
to another Nudelberg Daily Huddle. I feel great. I'm ready to be back.
Good to have you back. I was gone, did a little bit, missed you yesterday, but we have a full house today. We have, obviously, we're going to talk about Valentine's Day. There's love in the air. There's lots of love. Your post this morning was fantastic. We've got facts and stuff to talk about that'll blow your mind, but we cannot move forward until we understand the power of starting a conversation in LinkedIn. Share with me your post yesterday, sir.
Yeah, so yesterday I wrote about the penalty that got called at the end of the game because I had a very specific opinion about it when it came to them calling that penalty, and through my experience in football and whatever, and I tied it to some business dialogue, and I thought it was actually a pretty good tie. I was like, look, everybody's here to serve the customer, who is the fan.
Do you believe that the customers for the refs are the fans though?
So
I would argue that the customers.
I would
would be
tell
the
you
players.
that if you were in the NFL, everybody is serving the fan.
That's fair.
And athletes who think that any differently are the athletes who get exited very quickly.
That I agree with you. I'm talking about refs
Coaches
specifically. Yeah.
And that's what I learned about being in college football. Was you could think that like we're here for the school or you're there to drive revenue for the school. And if you're not driving revenue for the school, you don't win. So here we go. Right. It's a horrible call. So look, I had a very specific take that, and from being around officials for a long time, everything is a judgment call, right? Like he had to decide to take it out of his pocket, and you can argue what the rule is and whether or not it got admitted that it was a penalty or somebody admitted to holding. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the official has to make a judgment on whether or not he's going to throw the penalty. And I thought it was really poor judgment. I thought he decided to end the game, which most officials should not choose to do that.
Okay. So let's take it into the real world. I used to meet guys every single morning, and we would talk about every call, every play, everything. That's the fans' right, is to beat it up.
Right.
And so while I agree with you, and it doesn't matter which side of the fence you fall on, what matters is that LinkedIn is a place to have a global conversation. Right or wrong, you put your thoughts out there, lit a match that was like.
I will say, for the people who are like, yeah, you have to call everything. Like, you must be like a real fun person at parties, and like, what did you never broke the rules along the way, and it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, there is situational awareness.
But so let me just take it away from that post for a second. There are people who got brought into my world that I would have had 0% chance at meeting any other way. And there are people who commented on that post that either agreed or disagreed with me. Either way, I have the opportunity to now carry that conversation over to something else and get to know that person and get to have a real dialogue with them to build a relationship and add a new person to my network and to my world.
If that person came in with etiquette, they can have their own opinion.
Correct.
People are just assholes who came in and just were like, you're an idiot.
There's a president of a company, this guy Sam, who commented about enjoying the dialogue about judgment. And I was like, oh, that's a grand slam. Like him and I are going to go have a conversation because I can tell that we align. He knows that we align. We had a conversation about something that we're actually on opposite sides of the spectrum, but both agreed that it was a good conversation about judgment. And so that offers me the opportunity to go have a conversation with that person. I'm not reaching out to every person that liked or commented on that post, but there are new people who have been introduced to me that I now know I have a commonality with, that I'm offered the opportunity to have a conversation with them.
I found, first of all, it was very entertaining. It was really cool. It was so much better than sports radio or sports TV, because this was real life people who watched the game, had an opinion. My opinion happened to differ from yours.
Sure.
Being an athlete my whole life, you start the game, you get a feel for how the refs are going to call it. They're going to call it tight or they're going to call it loose. And you sort of go with that mentality, is like, all right, they're going to let them play, which is great. And then with less than a minute left, you're not letting him play. It wasn't egregious. Right. And I think that was a word that Jake said you used, and I agree with. It was like I'm pulling him down to the ground. It was a little tough.
It is a flag, though. Based on the rule, there is no argument.
Sure, and I haven't argued that, right?
Right.
Like, it is a flag. It is a flag. Like, by the definition of the rule in the NFL, it is a hold, and that's why it was admitted that it was a hold. And I don't point, and this is where other people like went in a completely different direction. They were like, "There's hundreds of plays in the game that decide." I'm not saying that play decided the game. That play ended the game. Whether you want to admit it or not, as a fan of football, I got robbed the opportunity to see Philadelphia get the ball back, to have a chance to go put a drive together, to kick a field goal, to send it to OT, to win the game, whatever, which I wanted to see.
Don't think it's the ref's responsibility to worry about that in the slightest. I think that takes away from their main job. Of their focus is to call the game based on the rules. And I think you're asking a lot for a human being to think of these outside things.
And I'm telling you that I've been around officials that have told me in those moments, we're not going to call that.
Yeah, no.
I know that they operate that way.
Right. No, sure. Some do. It's subjective. In setting the precedent, I would go, you have to set precedent. You got to call everything.
We got a great show. I want you guys to all stick around to talk about love and Valentine's and what it all means and all this stuff. But, control the controllables we talk about all the time. You can't control the refs. They have won games, lost games. I don't like that it went that way, but it was still an amazing game. And the best takeaway of all for me was when Patrick Mahomes got up there and said, please don't let the fact that we won overshadow the whale of a game that Jalen Hurts had, because that guy balled, so that's a class act. I'm glad he's around. Lots of good stuff. Let's wake this thing up and get into some happy Valentine's Day. Wake up, everybody. Get up, get up, get up, get up. Wake up. Come on, come on. Wake up, everybody. Teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen what you have to say. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. No more back to thinking. Time to thinking ahead. Come on. All right. So this is this day when we focus on love. Happy Valentine's Day.
None of us wore red or pink.
Honestly, I knew it was Valentine's Day. Wrote at the post last night about it being Valentine's Day. Woke up this morning, completely forgot it was Valentine's Day. Didn't remember it was Valentine's Day until Kai told me Happy Valentine's Day. And I was like, oh, yeah, right. Then completely forgot about it again until we got on the huddle. And I was like, right, it's Valentine's Day.
So Valentine's is an interesting comment because anybody can be your Valentine. It does not have to be, anything sexual. It's about love. And when I think about love, there's one song that comes to mind. Play me some great motivational music this morning.
It's easy, yeah. Nothing you can make that can't be made. Nothing you can save that can't be saved. Nothing you can do that you can learn how to be in time. It's easy. All you need is love. All you need is love. It's all
boom.
So that you'll be singing that all day for sure.
I love it.
Such a great lesson. Such a simple song. All you really need is love. We definitely do not have enough love in the world. But there were some stats about Valentine's Day that kind of blew my mind. So roll into this stat. Only 52% of the people plan to celebrate.
That's
well, today is also Sad Day. I think it goes hand in hand.
Is that what the actual name of it is?
I'm being dead. It's Sad Day. It's Singles Awareness Day. I'm being dead serious. That is a real thing. I read about it while doing research for Valentine's Day. It is Sad Day. It's terrible.
Singles Awareness Day. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. So I think the other thing to talk about is the way culture has probably changed. And I think the pandemic and isolation and moving people apart probably made it harder to be connected. But I don't know, like for me, if you're just willing to give the love, like today on FaceTime, Jules gave Kai a high five through the FaceTime, which like that wasn't in real life. That was digital. That happened through hundreds of miles of distance. And that was such a loving moment. Like that was the greatest gift I could have ever gotten. So seeing something like that, I think, how you choose to connect with people today, you just got to choose to connect.
So speaking of gifts, the top 5 consumer gifts, this is what consumers plan to give. 50% of it will be candy, which is basically, thank you for poisoning me.
Well, the hearts, right? I don't know what they're called, but they have like the heart candies with like little writings on it. Right. I love those. I was big into those.
40% will do greeting cards, which to me is a complete waste of time. What do you do with a greeting card?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a generation thing, but I don't believe in birthday cards either.
Yeah,
right.
I find it to be a massive waste of time. Like I'd much rather just call you and tell you in words or in text.
Look, the Nudelberg household is under siege right now, right? Like we've been under attack from a virus going around this house for the past 2 days. So like cards and like gift and date and all that like went out the window. Like we're trying to figure out how to handle the kid for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And manage, who's feeling shittier, who needs the rest. Like it's
37% will give flowers, and I understand that.
Flowers is a great gift.
32% do an evening out. Now I don't understand this. So if you go to the restaurant on Monday night, they're giving you specials out the wazoo. Please come in on a Monday night after the Super Bowl because nobody's going out on Monday night. Now it's Tuesday night, and I'm going to charge you double and give you a first menu.
Price gouge time.
Well, Mark is an economist, and so he's pretty well versed in the supply and demand chart. Listen.
Bingo,
bro. That's all right.
Right. Opportunity cost, baby. Opportunity cost.
Only 21% of the people will give jewelry, but that's not true. Eddie, we spoke to Eddie and Jesse, and Valentine's is a big day for jewelry.
They get busy. What's interesting is talking to Jesse is that it's actually more of the destination spot. So Weston Jewelers in Weston is far busier than the Hard Rock is because Hard Rock is more of a consistent. And if somebody's at Hard Rock and hasn't already gotten a Valentine's Day gift, the odds of them walking in there to buy jewelry is very low. So it's interesting, the buyer mindset and when it actually happens.
So good morning, Makila. Hello to our Bank United friends. Happy Valentine's back to you. So I want to flip the conversation. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the 5 love languages. So there's a way to speak to people, and generally speaking, it was introduced in 1992 by marriage counselor Dr. Gary Chapman. He wrote a book called The 5 Love Languages, and the languages are very different for everybody. So let's go through them. Number 1. Well, let's go through all of them and then discuss.
Yeah, I think give all 5. It's words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, and receiving gifts. Those are the 5 that he broke it into. And the book was fantastic. And the book is one that I read early on in my relationship with Gabby, which I think was really important because it's not necessarily about knowing how you get loved. It's really more important to understand the way other people get loved. And if that's not your natural love language, you got to do the work to speak to people in the way that they want to be loved in order for you to have a successful relationship, which if that fundamental of not understanding, I mean, I talk about it in every single leadership presentation that I do, how you communicate doesn't fucking matter. It's how the other person receives information. If you're not speaking to them in the way they receive information, it's a lost cause.
How do you go about finding that information?
Ask, right?
How you
go about finding out anything? Ask.
This is the whole thing with leaders that are self-aware. They're aware of asking, hey, listen, how do I show up in your life? So let's break these down. Mark, of the 5, and you can have multiple, what are your love languages?
Well, you do have multiple, I think. Mine are for sure words of affirmation and physical touch. Like those are the ones that dominate. If I'm not here, and number 1 is for sure words of affirmation. If it's not being spoken to me, then I don't really feel it. And the second one followed up by that would be the physical touch piece. I'm not a big gift guy. Like I love gifts. I appreciate gifts, but they don't like spark me the way that those other ones do. So those 2 for me are my 2 main drivers.
Which, no surprise, you are my son. I did not know that answer, but that answer would have been exactly mine. Jake, where are you?
I lean quality time. And I think as a 25-year-old, it's kind of an ongoing process of figuring it out, I think your priorities change as you get older. What I was really looking for as a 21-year-old is not what I'm looking for now. And so it's much more about building a relationship rather than the sexual, advances and all the other stuff that comes with it. So quality time is really where I get the most satisfaction.
Well, so I think what's really important is being able to have the experiences to figure it out. Part of what when I was reading the book, I was 29 or 30 or whatever I was. I had already had a bunch of experience in relationships, so I was able to apply what I was reading to what had happened in my life to say, oh yeah, that was that, and that didn't work for me. Or I remember, oh yeah, those kinds of interactions are what made me feel good. So having the experience to figure out and not just read the book and go, oh, well, I think these are mine, Which is a really cool experience because I just started reading, which is a big deal for me. I haven't read a book since the sophomore year of high school. And you either are about it or you're not. And so I want to be about it. And so I started reading, but it's really fascinating. It's a real self-awareness tool when you're reading and you're learning these things and you're immediately applying them to situations. And they naturally pop in your head when you read it. You're like, oh, right.
Wow.
Right.
And then there's something, right, drives it home or really puts a name on top of it or explains it better where you didn't know. So it's really cool.
Well, I felt the same way about reading The Saint, the Surfer, and the CEO. I was fortunate to read that at a time that I had a lot of experience inside of Florida State already, and it was a pivotal moment in my young career. So it helped me really navigate a lot of the things I was experiencing. If I would have read that at 19, I got no perspective.
I know, right.
Absolutely no perspective. Right. I'm reading it. It's a great story, but there's no way it moves me the same way because I didn't have anything to tie it to in my life that helped me then navigate forward.
So there's a couple of things that I want to unpack there. So one of the 5 love languages is receiving gifts. For me, it's giving gifts.
Right.
So I love giving the gift of something, giving people books. Jake said to me, I want to really get into reading. What's the book I should read? It made me feel so good that number 1, I've read books. I had a great recommendation and he's 30 or 40 pages into it. And he goes, I love it. It's just,
that's
to be honest, like I admitted that I was nervous, like to him. He was like, why are you nervous? And I was like, because I've worked out really hard before. I've had a process. I worked every day, in football. Like I've done these things. I've never applied this to my process. So this is something that I've never felt, never done. So I'm excited to go on the journey, but there is angst. Like there is some nervousness.
What's funny about Dad though, is that like you said your 2 love languages are the same as mine, which is physical touch and words of affirmation. But the way you speak love is through gift giving and not necessarily the way you receive love. So I think, that to me was what was so great about that book was it was a master's class in communication in specifically how to be in a romantic relationship or in a loving relationship, because it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic. Could just be with your kids or whatever, and understanding.
Or your employees or your friends. I mean, all of these relationships matter, as you said.
You're probably not going to speak your love languages to like your assistant, though, or like to your coworker. You're probably going to navigate that. To me, I'm not speaking my love language to the football team. Like as a coach, my love language didn't matter for the organization, but understanding the principle of the way I receive information is different than the way I may communicate information, which is different for that person in the way they receive information and communicate information. That one principle was a groundbreaking concept for me, because it allowed me to really operate differently. And it was something that I had started doing early in my career, but I didn't know I was doing it. And so that really wrapped my mind around, and I was like, oh, bingo. This is exactly how you're supposed to operate with individuals.
Well, for me, like understanding what doesn't work for me also, so that I can be like the silent treatment, forget it, man. The silent treatment, I go off the fucking deep end, man. I cannot handle that.
While we are on this conversation about love languages and relationships, the Gottman Institute, GOTTMAN, is an unbelievable place for relationship development. Gabby and I have done a ton of stuff through their practices and exercises. Really? We haven't gone to like any of their seminars or anything, but we've read a ton of their stuff. Dr. Gottman, I've read a ton of I read his book. I read all of his social posts. We pass stuff back and forth from them. It's a really great, and they talk about the the 4 horsemen to a relationship, which are the 4 pillars that you cannot overcome, which one of them is stonewalling, which would be the silent treatment. Right. When you choose to no longer interact and kind of stay in your place. So great conversation.
It's interesting because
love languages and relationships.
Scott Galloway, I was watching his podcast, and he was talking about how there's a lot of emotionally unavailable men or unviable men for women, because women learn this earlier. They take an importance of learning about themselves. They're reading more, they're educated more than men now, and it's leaving men just not possible. Like women are like, I don't want to be with them. Yeah, and then it's just, and then you're on the dating apps and you're swiping on one thing, and it's just like this constant thing. And so it's really important to learn about yourself, apply it, learn about other people. So it's a really cool conversation.
Closing the conversation. Valentine's Day is usually a time when people watch romantic comedies. So tell me what your favorite romantic comedy is. I know mine, hands down. I don't know if one comes to
I know mine. Yeah, I'm good.
I'm a closet Notebook fan. Like it's way up there for me. The Notebook is an
I'm gonna go.
I would say followed up by You've Got Mail. You've Got Mail is one of my favorite movies all time, and I would tell you that Gabby is a huge Pretty Woman fan.
Okay, I'm gonna go Hitch.
Oh, nice. Hitch.
I just pulled that out. That was not prepared in the slightest.
The Notebook gets me every time. I'm Waterworks every time.
Mine is Serendipity. It is just the power of love and circumstance and affirmation. And I'm a sucker. I cry every time. So are you man enough to cry with your lady today? Your lady, your significant other, whoever you're with, hug them, kiss them, know that they're around. Happy Valentine's Day. We love you. We thank you for being here. We'll be back tomorrow with a topic that'll blow your mind.
Let's go.
Please don't worry about me. I'm about to let my heart speak. My friends keep telling me to leave this. So let's get down to business. Let's get down to business.